Welcome to the Live Like Eden podcast. I'm your host, Lindsay, and I'm thrilled that you're here. Years ago, out of nowhere, I found myself in a radical shift in consciousness that took me over 20 years to fully wrap my head around. Yes, that's right. It took me a long time, and without any warning, down the rabbit hole of darkness I went. Now I'm here to share with you all the insights of awakening, spirituality, health, the energetic world we're living in, and my absolute favorite topic, just how crazy the ego mind can be. These subjects are designed to help you understand the awakening process, to open your mind, and prepare you for your own unique spiritual journey toward inner peace. So I invite you to sit back, relax, and enjoy today's discussion. Before we get started with today's show, I want to share with you something I've been working on. I have created a quiz just for you to see where you are on your own unique spiritual path. Everybody loves a quiz, right? You can go to my website at livelikeeden.com, click on the quiz pop-up, and answer 10 quick questions. You'll get an immediate response emailed to you with your results, a personalized podcast playlist including 5 Live Like Eden episodes that will offer you assistance where you currently are. And I've also thrown in a few bonus episodes that you'll receive a few days later. If you're a spiritual junkie, you're in the midst of awakening, or you're simply curious where you might be in your own spiritual process, check it out and feel free to share with your friends who might be interested too. Hello and welcome back to the show, everybody. I thought it would be fun today to talk about something that seems so simple, yet appears to be so incredibly complicated. I mean, speaking of just the topic of waking up, just awakening in general, the concept, when you look at it, seems quite simple. But the reality of actually doing it is overwhelming to us. It seems so difficult. And then you have to ask, why is that? And why do we make it so complicated? I mean, do you ever just look at the world around you and go, why is everything so confusing and complicated? You could look at a number of different subjects and just go, it doesn't have to be that difficult, I mean, I know I talk about health in the body on the show quite a bit, but just that industry alone and the overcomplication for the body is unreal to me. And when you understand the ego mind and how it's working, then it can make sense. And we're going to get into this today. But you can see this overcomplication of everything everywhere in the world. Not only can you see it in your personal lives with relationships, from friendships to romantic relationships to familiar relationships, but you can see it in the relationships between countries and the constant back and forth and the creation of peace or battling. And this is ongoing throughout history. It's never ending. I don't know about any of you, but there just must be another way. There must be a level of simplicity available to us that will allow us to feel peace and joy and contentment no matter what is happening in the insane world around us, right? Many people love to say that, we're living in insane times, like just suddenly it became insane in the world. And it looks like to me that it's always been that way. I don't think anything's different. I think there's always the pendulum swinging back and forth. Sometimes maybe it creates a little bit of balance in the middle, but it's always swinging back and forth. And it gets us to reach out into the world for answers, doesn't it? Everything that we do in our life seems to be about the external world. Everything around us seems like a big deal, right? And the ego is really clever at making everything a huge deal. So I want to talk about this huge deal today and how we have overcomplicated something that is actually quite simple. When you think about it, waking up is a simple concept, but why do we make it so complicated? Why do we make it so hard? In theory, when you start looking at awakening, and there are many different traditions, spiritual traditions, religious traditions that have their theories on waking up from this reality or waking up to who we truly are as a spiritual being. There's many communities today discussing awakening and what it means. What does it mean to you? Awakening can mean waking up from anything you thought was true that simply is not, all the way to the truth with a capital T, to self-realization, to the unity that you share with the divine, the recognition that you and God or spirit are one. And to take it a step further, it's eventually the disappearance of everything around you. The true illusion of life dissolves, and you return home in God or to the Godhead. However, there's a lot of talk about different parts of awakening, concepts that I'm sure you've heard, things like this. Oh, life is just an illusion. I got it. Check that off the box of spiritual awakening. Oh, we're all really one. I feel so connected to everybody else. I totally got that. Check mark. Check that off. I got that. Easy peasy. We're all one. We're all connected. I'm not really the self that I've been believing in my whole entire life. Wait, what? I don't know about any of that. I want to maintain my connection with myself, even outside of a body. I want to keep that connection going and going into reincarnation and another lifetime. And I'm going to maintain my special identity within the framework that we're all connected as one, which is not the same thing as oneness, where nothing else exists outside of God. You see how easy this is to start thinking that everything's all good and we can totally get these concepts. It's simple, yet it's not so simple when it starts actually happening. When that self that you believed yourself to be starts to dissolve, it becomes really difficult. And that's the whole essence of this show. Why does something so simple in concept, like, oh yeah, check it off the box, I got it, totally nailed it, to, oh no, it's actually happening, right? There's a million pathways home to God. But the truth is, we're all really on one path. And that path is either leading us further and further away from home, or we have woken up inside of us and are now listening to the spiritual side, and we're starting to turn the corner and come home. The path is the path for everyone. But there's many ways to get there. So when you're in your life and you say, well, I'm going to go join this group over here because they're teaching this. And somebody else says, well, I'm going to use this religion because I know it's what I believe and it's the faith that I have and I believe that it's leading me somewhere. All of these are just stepping stones on our own unique path, but the path is the same for all of us. We will all return home at some point, whether it's this lifetime or 1,000 more lifetimes. What I'd like to do today is just chat lightly about what is it that makes everything so difficult? What is it that's blocking us from truly waking up? The only way to really understand this is to look at it. There's a lot of people who will say, just focus on love and light and happiness and joy and peace. That's one way to do it. But discovering what is it that's actually keeping us from seeing the true reality, our true nature, is really important to know. Because once you see what it is that's blocking you, once you understand it, and I mean really understand it on a deep level, then you can begin to undo the error that you think you've created, or this whole concept of separation, that we're living in a world of separation from God. I've spoken about this many times, but I don't think it can be shared enough. That to understand your own mind and how it's a split mind, that you have an ego mind, that part of you that believes in the separation, that believes you're an individual identity here in the world, in a body, living your life. You have the other side of your mind, which has nothing to do with that, and it's the spiritual reminder that you are always home in God, that you are perfectly whole in God, that your body is merely a vessel while you're here. It has nothing to do with who you truly are. And Spirit will remind us of this. In A Course in Miracles, it's the Holy Spirit's right-minded system. So thinking about this as we move through, I want you to think about 3 things that are blocking us from reaching the simplicity that negates the complication that our mind projects. And it is a purposeful act. It's a purposeful doing. The ego is very clever. It is not by chance that we all are running around chasing our tail trying to figure out what the hell we're doing here. You know? It's true, right? How many of you go through life and at some point eventually you go, what is this? What is happening here? Why does nothing ever work? Why is it so challenging and difficult when it doesn't have to be that way? It really doesn't. But to ask all of the human beings to get this at the same time is not going to happen. The ego would not have it that way. This is an individual pathway home. And sometimes along that path, depending on where you are on it, it's hard to accept other people for where they are, isn't it? Think about your most intimate relationships or your closest relationships with the people that you love and care about. When you get into an argument or a disagreement, or you don't understand why they're doing what they're doing, sometimes it's very challenging, isn't it? It's challenging to simply come from a place of love and non-judgment, understanding that they are where they are. What do we want to do usually? Especially to our closest friends and family, right? We want to attack them. We want to one-up them, make them feel like they're less than we are, or we want to get back at them. Again, this is all part of the ego's game, and I guarantee everybody listening can relate to that at some point or another in your life. That's just what the ego does. Senses a threat, puts on the attack. And you can see this play out over and over and over again. It's when you see it is when you can make the change. When you understand what it's doing, you can begin to transform and shift your perspective on everything. So why is it that the ego is resisting this whole process? Really, what is it? What's it really afraid of? Why is it afraid for you to discover your spiritual nature or discover that there's another way to do this whole world? Why is it so terrified? Why is it putting up the gates and locking them, right? I was just recently at the Denver Zoo and I was looking at the elephants and we were back in their indoor area and it looks like, the cages there are so heavy, right? They're huge, obviously, because the elephants are massive. But it made me think about the blockade that we all put up, that this huge, heavy gate that the ego puts up so that we never access that spiritual side. So all of our resistance that we ever do in life, the resistance we give somebody else, the resistance is because we don't want to see that it's that simple. The ego does not want to know that there's another way. The ego has no interest in you discovering another wiser teacher. So it does everything in its power to resist everything. Doesn't matter what it is. You can see this play out in your own life in numerous ways. You want to resist somebody in your life, you're going to put up the blocks. You want to resist something that maybe you need to learn, but you don't want to learn it. You keep doing the same behavior over and over and over again. Right? This is just a symbol of how the ego acts. It's baiting you every single time so that you don't know the true peaceful nature that's available. So in a way, it's like the battle, right? There's this inner battle. And in order to see that battle clearly, you have to rise up into that observer that I've talked about many times on this show and be able to see it. You're stepping out of thinking, stepping out of the ego mind, you're stepping away and watching. And if you're able to watch, if you are able to see what you are doing in your daily life, if you're willing to commit to watching everything, to observing everything, you have access to making a decision for yourself. When you are not observing and when you are rooted in your ego mind and you're believing everything it's telling you and you're believing the thinker and it's just a cycle over and over again, you have no access to that decision-making part of your mind that can choose the peaceful way or can choose spirit in your life. So rising above that battle is really important. And one way to do that is just like I said, you just step back and watch. Try it in your life. Have you ever tried to just watch like you were just sitting in a room taking notes and you're watching yourself? It's really not about what other people are doing. It's about what are you doing? And watch it. Watch it like a hawk. Learn your ego's ways. Learn what it does. Learn how you put up your defenses. Learn how you make excuses for things. Learn how you resist something that might be better for you. Understanding resistance is key, and it's a natural defense and one of the ways that the ego will distract us over and over and over. And another way this will happen is just by merely being in the physical world. The ego, according to A Course in Miracles, is responsible for the physical world. It's its hideaway from God. It's the point of, I'm going to separate even further from God, and I'm going to play God. I can do it better. And it continues to play games in the world. Just look at the world. Just turn the news on and see what's going on. I mean, it doesn't take that long to figure out that there's always something to keep you distracted. And there's always this threat too, like your survival is there, right? The whole world's going to end tomorrow. A lot of religions believe this. The apocalypse is coming, and some predict dates, and then it never happens. And then I'm thinking, how can you still believe in this faith if this is still going on? But, to each his own. It seems to me that if A Course in Miracles is correct, that the ego mind has created a world, and we all collectively believe in it together because we're here, that's a strong belief, isn't it? It's a very strong belief, and I don't think most of us understand the depth, the real depth of that belief, how solid it really is. There's many people who say, well, I don't really care, I don't really believe in my ego, and it'd be fine if I lost myself tomorrow. Wait until that self that you believe yourself to be starts to dissolve, and then see how attached you are to your own ego. It's immense. It is that one thing that we all carry that is so deep, and we have no idea how deep it is until things start to blow up, until your identity is threatened. It's almost impossible to know it until it happens to you. It's impossible. You can think about it in theory and we can have a conversation about it, but until this actually begins to unravel in your life is when you will begin to know it. So understand, until this point, there's going to be lots of resistance because the ego does not want its own unraveling to occur, right? Why would it do that? I'm going to create all this and then I'm going to just let it all go. No, it's not. It is not going to let it go. So it's up to you to start looking and seeing how this works. And once you begin to see it, then you'll start to understand why the ego is putting up that wall. Because it's afraid of its own demise and its own annihilation, and that you'll choose another way. So the ego loves its resistance, and it uses projection to do this. So let's talk about projection for a minute. So follow me here. If the ego mind is made up a world, and that we're all collectively believing the world is real, right? I believe it, you believe it, we're all sitting here, we have to believe it. In order for the ego to maintain its dominance in your life, it's going to continue to project everything outside of itself, and it's going to project it outside into the world or onto other people. It does not want you to see what it's doing. So it will continue to throw blame everywhere else but itself. And this ties into taking responsibility. These work together. These three things, resistance, projection, and taking responsibility, work hand in hand. The ego has a plan here. They all work together, and they work really well if you're looking at it from the ego's perspective. I'll make up a world, we'll make it seem really real, we'll put ourselves in individual bodies and individual material things everywhere. It's going to continue to fragment off. We're going to complicate the shit out of everything, right? And just make it harder and harder for us to reach that really simple answer, which is sitting inside of us with spirit. Brilliant. The ego is very clever in its insanity, when you think about it. It's like when you think about psychopaths and sociopaths are very genius in how they operate, very manipulative, but very clever. I will always work to make sure that I blame and project outside of myself so that I never see the truth. And then what happens? The ego gets its way, right? It keeps fueling the identity, the separation, the entire belief in this world. It keeps it going. It's also going to continue to project everything outside of you so that you never see the true answer sitting inside, which has nothing to do with the physical world. The answer is sitting in your spiritual mind. But the ego is going to work to keep you invested in the physical, isn't it? For example, let's just talk about the body. We're all in the body. This is how we operate. And what does it do on a daily basis? It gets hungry, right? It needs something constantly. You're thirsty. I just spent all day yesterday trying to put together this new desk I bought for my twin daughters, okay? And of course, I bought it. It comes from China, and there's like 400 parts to put together. And I found myself squatting a lot during the time I was putting it together. And this morning I woke up and I was like, why are my legs so sore? And immediately you're going to the body. Oh, I'm sore. I'm stiff. What happened? And my attention goes right to the body. How many of you have this same exact thing, right? Every morning we wake up, and where does our attention usually go right away? To the body. What does it need right now? And I'm not suggesting that you don't attend to the needs of the body. This is more of a metaphysical discussion. But it's interesting to see how easy it is for the ego to distract us with the body. If you listened to a couple episodes ago, I went over this topic of Don't Die that's been on Netflix, this topic of these tech billionaires trying to keep us alive in a body forever. And I'm thinking to myself, why? Again, believing in this whole thing, this separation that I can achieve godly status in a body, when I'm not so sure that that's what Jesus's message was in the Bible. I'm not so sure he was even discussing anything to do with the physical world. It seems that his great message of the kingdom of God being within you has nothing to do with the world. It has to do with your own journey and self-discovery to get you home, which is not about the world. It's about God's world or God's kingdom. Psychology does a great job of talking about projection, that we project things onto other people, that we often do, yes? I mean, think about it. It's really hard sometimes to admit when you do something, so you just project it and blame the person next to you. Then you have no responsibility in the matter, and you can just blame Joe next to you, right? And you can do that as long as you want. And apparently we keep doing it over and over again. For example, you could think that your significant other or your spouse or your boyfriend or girlfriend just doesn't pay enough attention to you, right? Doesn't give you what you need. How many times do you hear this with relationships? They're not meeting my needs. Again, what needs are we talking about? Your emotional needs, right? Your feelings. This is big with the ego. The ego loves to use feeling and emotion to keep us distracted. That somebody else needs to provide me something, or I'm not going to love them anymore. This is all ego-based. And when you see it happening in your own life, it's kind of shocking, isn't it? Oh my God, what have I been doing my whole life? Playing games. Just playing games over and over and over. And not only am I playing a game, but I feel incredibly justified for my reasons, right? Well, he said this to me, so therefore I can treat him this way, and then it's okay. Where do we get when we do that? If we don't take responsibility for ourselves and our own projection, this is where the cycle continues. This is where it keeps going, and we never free ourselves from that cyclical cycle of birth and death over and over again. Getting back to the main topic of today, which is why do we make it so hard? Why do we make it so hard with something that seems so simple? If it's true that we're really just home in God and that this is all an illusion, the whole world is just a dream, why is it so hard for us to accept that in our life? Why is it so hard to wake up from that? When you go to sleep at night, you go to sleep, you dream some really strange stuff, right? How many of you just dream crazy things you can't even pronounce or put language on? It's so weird. And you get up in a sigh of relief because it's over. It never happened. You know it didn't happen. It's just a made up dream. Is that really different than what we call reality here in the world? I don't know. Is it that simple that, oh my God, this whole thing is not what I think it is? And we have something within us to remind us of that you're looking in the wrong place. You're trying to solve problems in the world over and over again that really have no solution in the external. And the remedy for that so-called problem is to just shift who you listen to. Stop listening to the ego's insanity and turn toward the wisdom of your spiritual nature. In the spiritual side of things, you'll notice that there's no expectation, there's no judgment, there's no need for anything to be a certain way. How many of you are perfectionists? How many of you want everything to go according to plan? And when it doesn't go according to plan, you kind of freak out, right? You kind of lose it. And guess what happens in that moment? The mind just fixated on that, and you lost touch with the spiritual side of everything. Because now you're saying, this should not be this way. This should never happen. It should be perfect. What does perfect even mean? I don't even think the ego knows what perfect is. It's just a distraction and a projection, and it really has no definition. Because when it thinks it's going to get what it wants, when it thinks that its expectation is met, it will continue to project out something else. It'll continue to strive for more. Nothing is ever good enough for the ego mind. I'm going to say that again. Nothing is ever good enough for the ego mind. If you feel like this in your life sometimes, where nothing is ever good enough, I can't ever get what I really want. I may think I want that, I get it, and that's not good enough. Do you know what that's really about? That right there is the resistance being put up by the ego so that you don't see the answer of spirit sitting within you. If we're really spiritual beings who are whole in God, and God is one perfect essence, does it really matter what I do in the world? If I achieve what I think I need to achieve, if I get what I think I need, does it really matter? Does any of that really matter if I'm really already whole and completely perfect in God? It seems like a never-ending chase that the ego will distract us with. It seems like that never-ending complication that will just keep going. And as long as we're willing to side with that side of our mind, and we're willing to take the bait from the ego over and over again, that's exactly the kind of life we're going to live. It's going to feel rough. It's going to feel incomplete. It's going to feel like a roller coaster ride. It's going to feel like my expectations are never met. I'm not good enough. You'll be dragged into fixing all the external problems in the world and never really seeing where the true fixing lies. As you shift inward and you recognize resistance and projection and taking responsibility are all intertwined together, the taking responsibility aspect is the one that's going to lead you out of the ego's mind. Because the ego does not want to take responsibility, does it? It doesn't want to say it's done anything. Everything outside of it is the problem. It's never me. Right? I didn't do anything. That person made me do it. You ever heard this before where parents too will say, you made mommy mad? No, mommy made herself mad, But it's not easy to admit that. It's not easy as a parent to admit to your child, I just totally lost it. And once you show the kid that you can lose it, oh, game over. You're going to lose it all the time, and they know how to push your buttons, don't they? Our personal relationships teach us everything that we never wanted to know about ourselves, don't they? But they're the best teachers. Whether you're married, you're single, or you have close relationships or business colleagues or whoever, it doesn't matter. Anybody you have a relationship with in your life can serve as your teacher because everything you see in them is sitting within you. If you see them as separate from you, then you feel separate from the whole. If you're unhappy with how they're acting and you're distancing yourself and saying they're bad and I'm good, you're siding with the ego. It doesn't mean that you don't separate yourself physically if you're being harmed or anything like that. But underneath it, I'm talking about that metaphysical aspect, what you're thinking and believing inside of you can be seen completely differently. Taking responsibility can happen on many levels, right? It starts with things like, I'm going to take responsibility for myself. That means I'm going to recognize that I need to make some behavioral changes in my life. Maybe I need to stop, staying up till 2 a.m. and I have to get up at 7 just so I can get more sleep. I mean, we're talking basic surface level things. Start there. Take responsibility for yourself. But really what I'm talking about here is taking responsibility for everything you see in the world outside of yourself is on you. Everything you interpret is on you. It's not about other people. It's not about anyone else except yourself. And when you begin that journey inward and say, I am the one believing in the separation, I'm the one doing it. Nobody else is doing that. I am. You begin your journey home, and you begin your journey to finding the spiritual side of your mind. You're stepping back from needing to project, from needing to blame, from needing to judge, and just observing. When you're able to just watch and observe, you start seeing clearly. When you're able to watch yourself, which is the hardest one of all, everything in your life begins to change. You begin to see everything differently. I have been believing in something that's not true. I've been blaming my misery on everyone else but me. You know how the world loves to say that everybody else needs to make you happy, or everybody else needs to treat you fairly, or everybody else needs to accept you for the way you are. Everything's always a projection. My environment was bad, so I'm horrible. Blame the parents for everything. This is why I am the way I am, because I had a traumatic past. Now, there's truth to that, because it does mold you. But when you break free from the ego, you recognize, I don't have to do that anymore. I don't have to blame my childhood for how I am today. I can always choose the higher power, the spirit within me, to see everything differently. And that would include realizing that however you were treated, whomever is doing what they're doing to you, can't be in a good place to do that, can they? It's almost like you begin to see where they are. You understand it. They're only doing it because of how they feel inside. That's all they know. That's where they are on the path. Again, it doesn't mean that you stay in some abusive situation. It doesn't mean any of that. It's just that you understand it. You understand where they're coming from, even if they want to blame you, which is the hardest one, right? When somebody's constantly blaming you, to understand on a very deep level, and you know that it has nothing to do with you, this is really about them. Not that you share it with them, but just that you know that. It's freeing. And then you see yourself as equals. You are all on the same path, just on different portions of the path. That's all. The second you start seeing other people and separating yourself from them, they're the bad guys, we're the good guys. I mean, just look at politics. And this isn't new now. It's been going on forever. That side's wrong, we're right. And it's just always back and forth, always. But if you can see the other side as this is just what they believe, they're still just like me. They're still believing in a body, walking on the path. Whether it's away or toward home is for them, I don't know. But we're all in this same situation. Another thing you might notice when you shift out of the ego mind and you begin to listen to that wiser spiritual self is that everything happens as it should. There's a flow to life that just works, as opposed to the other when you think it's so complicated and it doesn't work. And this could be on the level of very simple things. Have you ever just, like, somebody told you something? They told you and brought up something you'd never heard of. And then all of a sudden you start seeing it showing up all over the place. And then it makes sense, right? It's all flowing. I did this the other day where I bought a storage unit. I needed a little storage space. And I put it all together, again, the gazillion pieces that came in, and I put it together. And then once I put it together, I realized that it was not sturdy enough. So I needed to return it. Except in this process, I'd already thrown out all of the styrofoam packaging and all this stuff. And I thought, I really am going to need that so that this thing doesn't fall apart when I take it apart and ship it back to the manufacturer. And I thought, well, I guess I could go get some bubble wrap and do all this stuff. But what's interesting is the very day I'm packing it up, I'd ordered another desk, and that desk had come with tons of styrofoam. And I thought, oh, look at that. Perfect. I need not worry. Everything happens as it should. And I was able to use that styrofoam for the item I was shipping back, even though I'd already gotten rid of it. That's a simple example. But when you start letting life just happen, everything moves accordingly. You're not questioning it anymore. You're not resisting every little thing that's happening. You're okay with what's happening because you know the answer to your problem, which is really the belief in separation, is that All you have to do is look inward and choose spirit in your life. That's it. And then everything else on the outside will start to look better to you because you won't be so heavily invested in it. It doesn't mean you won't continue to live your life. It doesn't mean you won't pursue your career or have a family or get married or get divorced or whatever you're doing in your life. You still live it like a normal person. But you understand that everything you're seeing outside of yourself is not necessarily what you think it is. Life does not have to be one series of complications after another. You do not have to continue to listen to the insane thinker to make you distracted that everything deserves a complicated answer. It doesn't. It's simple. The answer's within you. The guide that will get you home is with you. It's not in anybody else. No one else can give it to you. Even some of the best teachers in the world can't give you that. That's for you and you alone. So when you think that life is getting so complicated and when you think it's so hard to wake up, remember the simplicity that exists behind it. That's a show, right? That whole system of fragmenting off and creating all these problems is just another distraction of the ego that is projecting out, not wanting to take responsibility, and putting up lots and lots of resistance and roadblocks for you so that you never access the answer. But the answer is simple. And if it helps you in your life to take several moments throughout the day to just step out of mind, watch what's going on around you. You don't have to do a formal meditation. You could actually be in the midst of total chaos with tons of people around you and lots of noise, and you can step out of the thinker and watch that situation. Just totally detached from needing it to be anyway, needing it to be anything, and just look. Use your magnifying glass and look, and then see where it takes you. See what you discover about yourself. See what you learn that you've been doing for so many years to make everything harder than it needs to be. So I hope that can help you in your life, just understanding a little bit about how tricky the ego mind is and how it will fight to the death to make sure you never see the simplicity that really is lying behind this supposed complication that's everywhere in front of us. That'll wrap up today's show. Until next time, I invite you to check out my website at livelikeeden.com. You can sign up for a weekly email reminder when my new podcast and blog comes out, which is every Wednesday. If you are struggling with your own awakening process and you need further assistance or guidance, you can also sign up for a free consult, and I would be more than happy to work with you. If you're enjoying the show, I ask that you share it with others that you think it might benefit. Until next time, thank you so much for listening.